Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sabrina, and in this week's video we're going to be reading none other than katabasis or katabasis. I alternate. Honestly, I don't say one specific one, I just alternate a lot. But anyways, so if you don't already know, rfkuang is my favorite author. I love Babel. Babel is my favorite book. I love the Poppy War. It is my favorite series, and I've read both the Poppy War trilogy and Babel both this year actually, so I'm naturally very excited to read this book. If you don't already know, katabasis is about these two PhD students who study magic, and they journey into hell together to save the professor's soul. It is inspired by Dante's Inferno, which I have not read. Online, a lot of people have been saying that it's not necessary to read Dante's Inferno. It's more of like, if you really enjoyed Babel, you're probably going to enjoy this as well. Also, I believe that this is supposed to go more into philosophy as well, which I'm very excited for, because I feel like with I'm going to put this down because it's so fucking heavy. With rfkuang's writing, she really does well, in my opinion, of blending together nonfiction with fiction. So very difficult conversations to have with one another or with ourselves. What I feel like her books do a good job at is being able to start those conversations, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel like those conversations are this subplot. It feels like those conversations are the main point of the book, but told in a storytelling way. Over the past year at this point, I've gone really into learning more about philosophy. One of the things I realized about it is that I actually enjoy learning logic a little bit more. Logic is a huge chunk in philosophy because it's the structure of the arguments, whereas in logic is literally just focused on the argument itself, if that even makes. I'm going to be saying if that makes sense a lot because I feel like I'm not communicating my thoughts very clearly at the moment. So without further ado, let's get started.
Yes, but it is not my current advisor.
Hello, it has been a couple of days, well 2 or 3 days. Actually, I don't even know anymore. So let's do a little update. I'm about 22% on the way through at the moment. And it's not because I'm not enjoying it. It's literally my own health and just being busy. So it's like difficult for me to be able to sit down and relax and focus, if that makes sense. I went to see rfkuang and that was absolutely amazing. She is so well, like, what's the word? Like eloquent, I guess. It was so cool to hear her talk about like her inspiration and talking about philosophy and logic. And so basically philosophy is her husband's area of like academia, and so whatever she was learning for the book, she was learning from him and his colleagues. I've seen a lot of discourse online saying that like whenever they face a problem that they have to solve, it's almost like the entire story just stops so that they can solve that problem, and then they never move on. Like it takes forever for them to get past that point. For that, I would say when it comes to philosophy, the argument or discussion never stops. Like it continues going and going and going. And with the things that she's brought up, if anything, I feel like the discussion of the argument is cut short and could be longer. So for example, in order to get past pride, they have to define good. It seems easy enough, but the thing is, it's actually quite difficult to define what good is, especially when you can just continuously go in circles and circles and circles discussing what is the definition of good and how are you personally able to define what good is compared to another person, because what your definition of what good is different to another person. So how can you define good that is equal to everybody? but it's difficult to do that because I'm getting farther ahead of myself. But it opens up those conversations that we can have with ourselves and we can have with people around us as well. So I'm gonna go make some coffee and I will let you guys know when I have another update for you. So I am now a little bit past the 50% mark, so let's do a little reading update. I'm actually really loving this book, and it really goes into a lot of different topics of philosophy and logic and paradoxes and so on and so forth. I think that even if you don't know a lot of philosophy, you can still really enjoy this book because everything that she is mentioning, she starts describing it. So I think that's very helpful, especially if you are new to the subject or you know some things but you don't know other things, so on and so forth. We go back and forth a lot on time frames, so it'll be going through hell and then going back in time, and she really defines when it's a time jump of going back to the past, and that's something I really appreciate because if there's one thing I hate in a lot of books is whenever they're going back in time and it's like in the middle of, like, not necessarily in the middle of a paragraph, in the middle of a section, like there'll be different paragraphs and then all of a sudden one paragraph is just going back in time and then we stick through that and then randomly it'll jump back to present tense. And that always irks me because I feel like it's so wishy-washy, if that makes sense, and I kind of like it feeling a little bit more grounded in something, and I feel like the way that she's going back and forth, it is at the right times, we're getting more information when we need to get more information and things like that, and I think that's just really helping with the pacing and the storyline. Looking into Alice's past and why she is the way that she is and why she views Peter the way she views Peter, it makes a lot of sense. There's already an idea of why they are this way, but it's like now we're receiving confirmation of that reasoning instead of just leaving it up to, well, I don't know. It's like we're getting a little bit more information but still kind of teetering on the something is not fully explained just yet. I don't read a lot of dark academia books, but this is not a story that is in the aesthetic of dark academia. This is very dark academia heavy and goes into the way that women are treated when it comes to the academic world. This is set in the 1980s, while Alice, she's like, oh, but we've made it, women, if we've made it, because now we're able to study at these universities and we can be taken seriously. And she also really hates the feminism movement because she feels like they're so whiny. Also conversations that she's had with other women when they find out that she works under Professor Grimes, that they're all kind of like, oh girl, how are you holding up? Like, and she's like, oh, I mean, whatever, he's passionate. And they're like, yeah, I guess you can call it being passionate, but like something's not right with this guy, and like, are you okay? And she always defends him, even though she knows that he does not need her to defend him. But she still does it because it's an abusive relationship. It is not healthy in the slightest. It's one of those very toxic dynamics where the victim believes that, one, they deserve any form of abuse that they get from them, and two, the abuse is helping them become stronger and be better than everybody else. And that is a very difficult topic to like touch on because it is so complex, and it can be, again, very difficult not just for people to talk about, but for people to listen to that kind of dynamic and be understanding at the same time and not be too judgmental on it. Going through and getting more into her mind, it would make sense why. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a positive thing. I'm just saying it makes sense why she would be like this. And it is a very harsh thing to wake up from. We can find this type of topic in other books for women who are waking up from this type of life that they're living in and recognizing like, oh my God, I need to get out of this. But then it's like they want to hold on to that dynamic, because if they don't have that, then what do they have? What was it all for? What do they have to gain from it if all they can do is just turn their back from it and try to live a life completely opposite than what they were raised and groomed to believe in this specific relationship? I don't know if that makes any sense, but we're starting to get a little bit more into that kind of conversation here. And that is something that I appreciate. I think that should be spoken about for women who go through that mentally and experience those types of things with their life and recognize that they're not alone and that they can get out of it and that there is hope. I mean, I don't know. I haven't finished this yet, so I don't know exactly what's gonna go on. At the end of the day, it's just important for women or anybody who is experiencing that type of abusive relationship to recognize that they can still get out of it and still have their own identity that they can be proud of, and not dedicate even more of their heart and soul to somebody who does not deserve it. But yeah, look up the trigger warnings, please. I didn't look up the trigger warnings. I went completely blind into it, and I kind of wish that I looked up the trigger warnings so I can be a little bit more prepared for the topics that it was going to go into. But I'm also not surprised that it's going into these topics, if that makes sense, because it is an abusive relationship between a student and her professor. That's all I have for now. I don't think I'm going to be able to get much reading done tonight. I would like to, but I'm not for sure yet. But we'll see. So I finished reading Katabasis and I gave it 5 stars. Shouldn't be surprised, genuinely. I was going back and forth on it a lot, to be honest, because I was like, okay, I've given like every single one of her books 5 stars. And then going through some type of crisis mentally of how people are going to think that super biased opinion or like, you know, many other things like that. But the reality is, I loved it. It gave me everything I was hoping for, and I got to learn about some different things, learn new things about myself that I would like to go on YouTube and watch videos learning more about paradoxes, because I don't know much about a paradox, to be quite honest with you. This book really goes into those types of topics and very heavy on the academia. So if you like dark academia, but you like the essence of dark academia, maybe you'll like this book. I can't really say for sure. Reading is very subjective. What I may love, you may hate, vice versa, and that is okay. Like, it is good to have difference of opinions when it comes to books, because that helps us learn more about ourselves and each other and be able to find our own community of people who are going to agree on most topics of books, if that makes sense. If you read Katabasis and you absolutely hated it, that's okay. For me personally, this was a phenomenal book, a phenomenal story, and such a great personal interpretation on what hell is, because it goes over into many different versions of what hell is. I don't want to go too much into my own beliefs of what the afterlife is supposed to be like, but what I will say is I think about death way too often. The thought of what the afterlife is supposed to be, what reincarnation is, what the different religions believe about the afterlife and stuff is so interesting and so different compared to like each individual and their own beliefs. And I think with this, going into those topics, because it wasn't just about there's pride and then there's greed and then there's like desire and like whatever, what does it look like in each section, but it was so much about that own individual and what they think hell is going to be like. Not just what hell is going to be like, but what they identify as hell. For Alice, going through a very abusive relationship with her professor and so insanely toxic, and Peter going through that same type of dynamic with the professor as well. Different format, but still facing abuse from him. It was easier for him to make that kind of breakthrough of, oh my gosh, this guy is literal trash and he deserves to be here, and he probably deserves to be in each layer of this hell. But for Alice, she's like, he's above this, he wouldn't be here, he wouldn't do like, he's like a god practically. And Peter's just like, oh my god, what is wrong with you, girl? Get it together, you are better than this. The full identity crisis. And we're able to watch her start shedding the layers of this mentality that this professor has set her in, making her believe. Sorry, my dog is like trying to build a hole in his bed right now, so if you can hear those sounds, I apologize. Sorry if I go off topic, I completely forgot what I was talking about previously, but okay, yeah. He's made her believe that she can't be her own person, that she prides herself in being like his sidekick. She has no sense of individuality, but she has such a strong, brilliant mind, and she is so capable of doing amazing things, but she thinks that she can't because it's better to be his student. It's better to be somebody who has worked with him for years, who's able to face the abuse, who's able to take his abuse, was able to be scarred by him. She thinks that's going to make her be excellent. And it's so frustrating because it's like seeing how she thinks, like with her philosophy and her logic. It's like we're able to see like, girl, you are really freaking smart, but you are ruining it all for this man who can't even do his own stuff, who relies and preys on you, on intelligent people to get him to where he is now. He's a leech. He is a parasite. Like, girl, get out of this. And she's like, what would it all be for then? It needs to have meaning. Again, it goes into the abusive dynamic and how difficult and hard it is for women to, or for anybody really, to get out of that kind of mindset. I love Peter so much. Go into his life and it just makes so much sense. I don't have the same disease that Peter has, but I have chronic pain. I don't know what it's like to be in the position that he's in, to have that kind of autoimmune response. But what I do understand is the difficulty of being able to make friends because of your condition. It's hard. It's rough. Going through different activities, trying to be friends with people who are going to treat you as a person and see you as a person and not as some type of object to create your own, I don't know, like savior complex kind of thing. It's just genuinely hard to make friends when you have a chronic condition. Those elements I understood and I got where he was coming from, and it was great to see more into his life and who he is, because it would have been hard if it was just like, oh, actually I've been sick like this entire time, and it was just in a paragraph where we got that kind of information from him. I think that would have been difficult to be able to connect with him as a character and see him as more than just Alice's rival. If you're interested in this, then I recommend it. If you're not interested in it, that is okay. If you are interested in reading rfkuang and you don't know where to start, if you like history with a fantasy retelling, read The Poppy War. If you like literary fiction that's also commentary on racism within the publishing industry, read Yellowface. If you are interested in colonization and racism within the academia world, read Babel. And if you are interested in philosophy and logic and paradox and thinking about death, then read Katabasis. So that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope that your next read is a 5-star read. So I will see you later.